Hey y'all, it's Ruby and this is my grandma and I'm entering the 50K scholarship grant and I'm just to show y'all that I'm going to tell y'all she inspired me the most. So introduce yourself.
I'm Grandma and this is my lemon head.
Are you there? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, so I just want to tell y'all a little bit about my history with my grandma. She's my favorite person in the world. What inspired me the most is when I was around 7 years old, my grandma used to prostitute.
No, you didn't! Janelle!
Residents at the apartment told us it all started with a fight. In this social media video, you can see a woman being thrown to the ground right before more people start getting into a fight. Then gunshots.
Oh, no, they done fucked this girl up, boy. Oh, hold up. A nigga out here. What, they got five?
When police got to the scene, they found one person with a gunshot wound. That person was taken to the hospital. After the shooting, police say they were sent on a chase that ended nearly 2 miles away on Duncan Place and Old Winter Garden Road. They say at least 3 people were found inside this black Impala, one of them with a gunshot wound who was taken to the hospital, the others detained by Orlando.
Y'all lucky. I changed. I changed. I changed. Those were the haunting words Ruby Keir repeated in a dream just days before her life was violently taken. A prophetic warning that would unfold in the most chilling way imaginable. At 22 years old, Ruby had dreams bigger than the walls around her, dreams of success, of change, of a future where she could raise her children with love and ambition. But her future was shattered when those words she had whispered in the quiet moments of transformation became a grim prediction of what was to come. On the afternoon of September 22, 2023, Ruby was gunned down in broad daylight, caught in the crossfire of what would be a chain reaction shooting in an Orlando apartment complex. It wasn't just another senseless shooting. It was a well-planned, coordinated attack. But why her? What made Ruby, a young mother, a business owner, someone striving for change, the target? Was this just the random violence of a city in crisis? Or was Ruby's murder a calculated execution, a cold reminder of what happens when someone dares to rise above their past? But here's the chilling part. Ruby had been warned. Her transformation, her attempt to better herself, had put her in the crosshairs of those who couldn't bear to see someone succeed. Was Ruby's death the result of the life she had tried to leave behind, or was it something far more sinister? Before we dive into the truth behind this devastating crime, I need you to hit that subscribe button. Cases like this remind us why it's so important to stay informed about the dangers lurking in the shadows, and how easily someone's dreams can be cut short. Stay with us as we uncover the mystery that still haunts Ruby's family and our hearts. Ruby Keir wasn't always a statistic. She wasn't the kind of person you'd expect to meet a tragic end like the one she faced. At just 22 years old, Ruby had already built a life, a business, and a future that was just beginning to take shape. She wasn't a product of her circumstances. She was someone who fought to change her story. Ruby had dreams, big ones. Born and raised in Orlando, she wasn't just trying to survive. She was trying to thrive. She had 2 young sons, Messiah and Zion, who were her entire world. Everything she did was for them. She worked tirelessly to create a life where they could have opportunities she never had. She was a licensed cosmetologist, and despite the fierce competition in Orlando's beauty industry, she carved out a space for herself. Kiosko LLC was her pride and joy, her own business, a place where she could not only style hair, but transform lives. But it wasn't just about the work. It was about the community she built. Her clients weren't just customers, they were family. They would often describe Ruby as the light in a dark room, the one who could brighten your day with a simple smile. Her social media pages were flooded with images of clients leaving her chair with flawless hairstyles, wigs, extensions, and designs that left people in awe. But beyond the Instagram pictures and the hashtags, Ruby's business was thriving. She was building something real, something that would provide for her sons and leave a legacy. But it wasn't just her business that was growing. Ruby was going through a transformation, one that seemed to be more than just physical. It was spiritual. She was trying to find peace in a world that had given her little of it. She kept a journal where she wrote about her goals for September, which included strengthening her relationship with God and continuing her journey of personal growth. Those closest to her noticed the change. She wasn't the same Ruby who had once been part of the chaos around her. She had found faith, and in that faith, she found something she hadn't known before: hope. Hope for her children, hope for her future, and hope for the kind of life she could offer them. Her grandmother was her biggest inspiration. Ruby would often talk about the lessons she'd learned from her, the woman who taught her that dreams weren't just wishes, but promises you made to yourself. And Ruby was living that truth, working hard every day to make those promises a reality. She even created a separate Instagram page to share the lives of her sons, documenting their milestones with the kind of love only a mother can provide. But there was something deeper within Ruby, a feeling she couldn't shake. She knew in her heart that the life she was trying to build was not going to be easy. She had left behind a world of chaos, but that world didn't want to let her go. Her friend had sent her a message just weeks before the shooting, a message that would haunt them all. It was a warning in the form of a dream, one that predicted Ruby's fate with eerie accuracy. The dream wasn't just some random vision. It was a reflection of the very world Ruby was trying to leave behind, a world that would soon catch up with her. In the dream, Ruby was surrounded by a group of women, each trying to provoke her into a fight. But Ruby didn't engage. Instead, she laughed and repeated the same words over and over. "Y'all lucky I changed. I changed. I changed." It was as if she knew, deep down, that her past was coming back for her. Her friend, shaken by the dream, reached out to her with an urgent warning. The devil will try to put people in your path to bring you backwards. It's a setup, literally. But Ruby, like so many of us, thought she had changed enough. She thought she had done the work. She thought she was safe. Ruby had no idea that her transformation, her desire to leave behind the life of chaos, would be exactly what led her into the crosshairs of those who felt threatened by her success. She had built something beautiful, but not everyone was ready to let her rise. September 22nd, 2023. A Friday afternoon in Orlando, Florida. The kind of day that starts normal and ends in headlines. Ruby had no idea when she woke up that morning that her friend's prophetic dream was about to become reality. At 2:30 p.m., something was happening at Jernigan Gardens Apartments on Mercy Drive. A dispute had broken out among a group of women. Now, disputes happen every day, but this one was different. Someone made sure Ruby knew about it. Someone made sure she felt obligated to show up. Here's where the story gets murky, and that's not by accident. The exact nature of the female dispute has never been fully disclosed. Was it about money, relationships, business, or was it manufactured specifically to draw Ruby to that location? Because when you look at the evidence, this feels less like a random argument and more like bait. Ruby arrives at the apartment complex courtyard. There's already a crowd gathering. Tensions are high, voices are raised, and somewhere in that crowd, someone has their phone out, broadcasting everything live on Facebook. Because apparently, even in 2023, people think violence makes good content. But here's what nobody in that crowd understood. They weren't just witnessing a fight. They were about to witness an execution. Because hidden among the spectators were men with guns. Men who had been waiting for exactly this moment. Ruby walked into that courtyard thinking she was mediating a dispute between women. She had no idea she was walking into an ambush that had been designed specifically for her. Her friend's dream was playing out in real time, People from her path were there to bring her backwards. Way backwards. And the person filming on Facebook Live was about to capture something that would haunt everyone who watched it. What happened next lasted less than 60 seconds, but those 60 seconds destroyed multiple lives forever. The female dispute was escalating, just as planned. Ruby was in the courtyard, probably trying to de-escalate the situation like she always did. She was the peacemaker, the one people called when things got heated. But this time, peace wasn't the goal. Then, the first shot rang out. Police would later describe what followed as a chain reaction shooting. But that clinical term doesn't capture the chaos that erupted. One gunshot became two. Two became four. For became a barrage of gunfire from multiple directions as other armed men in the crowd started shooting. This wasn't a shootout. This wasn't self-defense. This was a coordinated attack where multiple people opened fire simultaneously, turning the apartment courtyard into a war zone. And Ruby was caught in the crossfire, except she wasn't just caught in it. She was the target. The Facebook Live kept rolling. Whoever was filming caught Ruby's final moments, broadcasting them in real time to anyone watching. Imagine being Ruby's family, finding out your daughter was murdered because someone shared the live stream. Imagine having to relive those moments over and over because someone thought violence was entertainment. When the gunfire finally stopped, the damage was devastating. Ruby was down. 3 other people were wounded, but would survive. Children who lived in the complex had watched the entire thing from their apartment windows. And the shooters? They ran. A black Chevrolet sedan peeled out of the parking lot, carrying at least 3 of the men responsible. But this wasn't a clean getaway. Orlando police were already responding to multiple 911 calls about the shooting. And when they spotted that black Chevy speeding away from the scene, the chase was on. The pursuit didn't last long. The sedan crashed at Old Winter Garden Road in Duncan Place, and 3 men were pulled from a wreckage. 1 was injured in the crash. All 3 were detained. But here's the thing that should terrify you. Those 3 men weren't the only shooters. Police knew from the beginning that more people were involved. Ruby was pronounced dead that evening. 22 years old. Mother of 2. Entrepreneur. Woman of faith. Killed in broad daylight while someone filmed it for social media clout. But the investigation was just getting started, because what police discovered next would reveal just how deep this conspiracy really went. The first arrest came fast. Too fast, some would say. Delray Shundale Duncan Jr., 23 years old, was charged with first-degree felony murder and attempted homicide. The speed of his arrest suggested police had solid evidence linking him to Ruby's death. But here's what investigators weren't telling the public. Duncan wasn't the only shooter, and he might not have even been the first to pull the trigger. See, that Facebook Live footage? It captured everything. Multiple muzzle flashes, multiple shooters, multiple people who decided that a dispute between women was worth ending someone's life over. But processing that evidence, identifying every shooter, building cases that would stick in court, that takes time. 6 months. That's how long it took for the second arrest. March 28, 2024. Christian Amari Childs, just 18 years old, was picked up in Osceola County. But look at these charges. 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder with a firearm, shooting at a building, discharging a firearm on residential property, and use of a firearm in a felony. Notice something? He's not charged with Ruby's murder. He's charged with trying to murder the 3 survivors. This tells us something crucial about the shooting. The prosecutors believe they can prove who shot whom. Duncan is connected to Ruby's death specifically. Childs is connected to the other victims, which means investigators have analyzed that Facebook Live footage frame by frame, identifying not just who was shooting, but who was aiming at whom. But here's where it gets really disturbing. Even after 2 arrests, Orlando police released flyers asking for help identifying additional suspects. They showed pictures of at least 2 more men who participated in the shooting. Think about that. At minimum, 4 people showed up armed and ready to shoot. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a coordinated hit. And that 6-month gap between arrests? That wasn't just processing time. That was investigators unraveling a conspiracy, tracking down every person involved, building multiple cases simultaneously. Because when you have 4 or more shooters in a coordinated attack, you're not dealing with a crime of passion. You're dealing with something that was planned, organized, and executed with military precision. The question that should keep you awake at night is this: how many people knew Ruby was going to die that day, and how many of them did nothing to stop it? But while investigators were building their cases, something else was happening that exposed the ugly truth about how we consume tragedy in the social media age. Ruby's death went viral, not because people cared about justice, but because the Facebook Live footage was being shared, screenshotted, and turned into content. Her final moments became entertainment for people who didn't even know her name. Memorial hashtags started trending, but so did conspiracy theories and hot takes from people who treated her murder like it was some kind of reality show episode. The GoFundMe campaigns started almost immediately. Some legitimate, set up by family to cover funeral costs and support for her 2 young sons. Others, not so much. People who barely knew Ruby were launching fundraisers, monetizing her death while her body was still in the morgue. Because nothing says rest in peace like turning someone's murder into a profit opportunity. But the most disturbing controversy wasn't about money. It was about blame. See, when a woman trying to change her life gets murdered, there's always someone ready to whisper that maybe she brought it on herself. Maybe her past caught up with her. Maybe she should have known better than to get involved. Maybe she wasn't as changed as everyone thought. This victim-blaming undercurrent was everywhere. Online forums, social media comments, even some news coverage carried this subtle suggestion that Ruby's death was somehow inevitable because of who she used to be, as if trying to grow and evolve makes you responsible for other people's violence. Here's the truth those people don't want to face. Ruby's transformation wasn't fake. It wasn't temporary. It wasn't a performance. She was genuinely building a new life, and that's exactly why she had to die. Because in certain circles, when someone decides they're too good for the life they came from, when someone starts talking about faith and change and building something legitimate, it's seen as disrespect. It's seen as thinking you're better than everyone else. And some people will kill you for that perceived disrespect. Ruby's friend's dream wasn't just prophetic. It was a warning about the psychology of crabs in a bucket. When one tries to climb out, the others pull it back down. Except in Ruby's case, they didn't just pull her down. They shot her down. And the most twisted part? The people responsible for her death probably convinced themselves they were teaching her a lesson about loyalty, about respect, about staying in your lane. They probably thought they were justified. But let's talk about what really happened here, because the full truth is more disturbing than any conspiracy theory. Ruby didn't die because of a random dispute between women. She died because her transformation was working, and that threatened people who needed her to stay broken. Think about it. A coordinated attack involving multiple armed men doesn't happen over a spur-of-the-moment argument. This level of planning, this many shooters, this much coordination, someone decided Ruby had to die, and they used a female dispute as cover to make it happen. The prophetic dream her friend had wasn't supernatural. It was intuitive. Ruby's friend could sense what Ruby couldn't see, that there were people in her orbit who viewed her success, her faith, her growth as a personal insult. And those people were planning to do something about it. Here's the psychological profile of what happened. Ruby represented everything her killers couldn't be. She was building a legitimate business while they were still stuck in street mentality. She was raising her children in faith while they were raising hell in the community. She was proof that change was possible, and that made them look at their own lives and feel inadequate. So they killed the proof. They eliminated the evidence that transformation was possible. Because if Ruby could change, what excuse did they have for staying the same? And the Facebook Live footage? That wasn't just documentation. That was a message. They wanted people to see what happens when you try to elevate yourself. They wanted Ruby's death to serve as a warning to anyone else thinking about changing their life. This is what happens when you think you're better than where you came from. The fact that there are still outstanding suspects tells us this conspiracy goes deeper than two young men with guns. This was a network decision. Multiple people agreed that Ruby Patterson had to die for the crime of becoming a better version of herself. As of today, Ruby's sons are growing up without their mother. Her business dreams died with her. The celebrity stylist career she was building ended in an apartment courtyard. And the people responsible? Some are in jail, some are still being hunted, and some probably think they did nothing wrong. But here's what Ruby's killers didn't understand. You can't kill transformation. You can't murder someone's legacy. Ruby's story isn't about a woman who died because she changed. It's about a woman who proved that change is possible, even if it costs you everything. Her friend's dream was prophetic, but not in the way anyone expected. Ruby did say, "Y'all lucky I changed, because if she hadn't changed, if she was still the person she used to be, she might have seen this coming. She might have been armed. She might have struck first. But she chose growth over revenge, faith over retaliation, and peace over violence. And that choice got her killed. The trials are still pending. The outstanding suspects are still being hunted. The Facebook Live footage is still evidence in an ongoing investigation. But Ruby's transformation? That's complete. She became exactly who she was meant to be, even if she didn't get to live as that person for very long. Sometimes the universe does try to warn us. Sometimes friends have prophetic dreams. Sometimes we ignore the signs because we think our growth protects us from our past. Ruby Keir Patterson learned the hardest lesson of all. Not everyone wants to see you win, and some people will kill you just for trying. If you found this story as disturbing as I did, make sure you're subscribed, because we'll be following this case through trial and bringing you updates as more suspects are arrested. And if you believe in prophetic dreams, or if you've ever felt threatened for trying to better yourself, drop a comment below. Because Ruby's story isn't unique. It's just the one that got caught on camera. The question that remains is this: how many other Ruby Keirs are out there right now, being warned in dreams, feeling the pull backwards, walking toward their own Jernigan gardens? And will they listen to the warnings, or will they choose faith over fear like Ruby did? Rest in peace, Ruby Keir Patterson. Your transformation was complete, even if your story wasn't.